We all know Devin Booker is one of the deadliest offensive players in the game right now, but the problem is, the Phoenix Suns franchise player hasn't even played a single playoff game his entire career. Well, of course, you can't say that no part of the blame should be placed on Booker, but in reality, it's really going to be hard for him to get to the postseason when the best teammates that he's had were probably a slightly overvalued Eric Bledsoe, a Tyson Chandler who was past his prime, a PJ Tucker who hasn't reached his peak yet, an old Jamal Crawford, and of course, an inexperienced DeAndre Ayton. But finally, after years of blunders by the front office and with the help of some rumors saying that Devin Booker wanted out of Phoenix, the Suns finally decided to swing for the fences by trading for the point guard Chris Paul this past offseason. And right now, to say that the team has been much better is a huge understatement. Last season, the Suns were a relatively young team who struggled to make the play-in game despite going undefeated in the bubble. But 6 months later, they have the fourth best record in the NBA with a quarter of the season played, they have 2 All-Stars, and they have a roster with a good mix of veteran and young talent. But how exactly did Chris Paul make the Suns a much better team? And most importantly, how did Devin Booker refine his game to coexist with the point guard? Further, what should we expect from DeAndre Ayton in the future, and how good does this team look as potential contenders in the Western Conference right now? What's good, guys? It's Rero Balls here, and today, we'll dive deeper into the Phoenix Suns to see why they shouldn't be slept on. But before we move on, it would be great if you guys could hit that like button right now. It only takes a second of your time, but it definitely helps me get my content out there and it will be greatly appreciated. So let's get to it. Everyone needs to pay attention to the Phoenix Suns this season and most likely even in the next few years. As of the moment, they're sitting at the 4th spot in the West, they have the 4th best win percentage in the NBA, and they're joining Utah as the only teams in the league with the top 8 ranking in both offensive and defensive ratings. Well, of course, Phoenix already had a solid team in place going back to last season, and Devin Booker is currently playing solid as always, putting up almost 25 points per game while averaging the highest effective field goal percentage of his career at 56%. But basically, we could attribute the huge jump that the Suns are taking to the Chris Paul effect. While the point guard is once again proving his doubters wrong as he has just made his 2nd straight All-Star appearance and his 11th overall. Chris Paul is putting up 16.6 points together with 8.5 assists per game while having ridiculous 48, 39, and 97% shooting splits. That's just what Chris Paul does. He puts good teams in a better position and he fixes teams which are broken. Well, to be fair, the Suns weren't a broken team last year. They already had a solid young core and some good pieces, but they were still 13 games under 500 prior to entering the bubble. But fast forward today, Chris Paul has helped this team to solid playoff positioning while playing at an all-star level. They have increased their win percentage to 67%, up from 46% last season. And if you're still not sold on Chris Paul being a game changer, then it's worth noting that all the teams he played for actually experienced an increase in win percentages when they acquired him. And I don't think this is a coincidence at all. The New Orleans Hornets had a 22% win rate the season before drafting him, but Paul immediately turned them to a 46% win team. And this has also been the case with the Clippers, Rockets, Thunder, and now the Suns. While there's always this lazy argument that Chris Paul has always failed to carry his team deep into the postseason, but even the best players in the NBA had to pair with another elite scorer to win a championship, and LeBron and KD are prime examples of that. While Chris Paul never really played with a real elite scoring talent before James Harden, but the first season they played together, they were so close to beating a Steph and KD-led Warriors team, and who knows what could have happened if CP3 didn't miss the last 2 games of that series. But the point is, once again, we're witnessing how a 35-year-old Chris Paul works his magic, especially now that he's playing with another elite scoring guard in Devin Booker. And the thing is, Chris Paul has always done it the same way. He's a guy who plays with a very methodical approach to the game, who chooses control over chaos and precision over volume. And right now, his style is certainly rubbed off to the Suns in a good way. Last season, Phoenix played with the 9th highest pace in the league, but they're down to number 29 in pace around the league right now. But this doesn't mean that the Suns are playing very slow all the time. Chris Paul still pushes the ball from time to time when needed, but most importantly, is very selective with the shots he's setting up, as has been the case series before. And to prove that point, the Suns also lead the NBA in terms of points per transition possession at 1.22 points per game, but at the same time, they also rank first in terms of shots made during the final 4 seconds of the shot clock. And so what this tells you is that Chris Paul is just so good with controlling the pace of a team to the point that the Suns are able to kill opponents both in the half court and in transition. But aside from that, Paul is still a point guard who can always shoot from anywhere on the floor while attracting defenses, which in turn opens up shots for his teammates. Because of this, Phoenix ranks as the 3rd best team in terms of shooting wide open shots this season as well. And that's just the Chris Paul effect in full display right there. And of course, the team's success can also be attributed to how Devin Booker has been able to adjust his game to complement Chris Paul without necessarily taking a huge step back. While Booker has had a little drop in terms of points per game production, but right now, playing a little bit off the ball has made him a much more efficient scorer. Currently, the guy is posting career highs in 2-point percentage at 55.6%, and he's also matching his 38% career high in 3-point percentage. And I think this is something worth looking at to see how Devin Booker is continually developing as an efficient scorer, because right now, only 11 players in the entire league have matched Booker's level of efficiency in the 2-point range, which basically includes the paint and the mid-range. And this list includes guys like LeBron, Giannis, Luka, and KD, who are either big, strong, or hyper-athletic guys who can easily drive by defenders to create shots. And Booker also joins Kyrie Irving as the only 2 guys standing 6'5" and below to shoot at least 55% from 2-point range this season. Obviously, Booker isn't the quickest or the longest guard out there, but he's just so skilled that he's always able to create space with the ball in his hands, while also being able to knock down contested jumpers from whatever angle. While on the other hand, there's obviously a drop-off in his assist numbers at 4.3 per game, down from 6.5 last season, but I think this is kinda expected. Transitioning from Ricky Rubio to Chris Paul as your point guard definitely means that you gotta give up some sort of control, since you just can't play Chris Paul off the ball obviously. This season, Chris Paul ranks 8th in the entire league in average time per possession holding the ball, which isn't a surprise of course. But if any, Booker has been showing that he can still be a dominant scorer despite having a relatively limited number of chances to play on ball as compared to last season, because currently, per NBA statistics, Devin Booker ranks 5th overall in the NBA in total points among all guys who averages at least 50 touches per game, only trailing guys such as Zion Williamson, Jaylen Brown, Kawhi Leonard, and Bradley Beal. And Booker even generates more points than Kevin Durant despite having lesser numbers of touches per game. And basically, you'll notice that all of these guys who share the list with Booker are all part of superstar tandems or trios. And the basic takeaway here I think is that the key to making things work between star tandems is having at least one guy who can be an effective player off the ball. And so far, Booker has taken on that role and has been totally committed to adjusting his game to make things work for this Suns team. And I think this clearly explains why Devin Booker is equally deserving as Chris Paul to be an all-star this season. You just can't consider it a knock to his game that is averaging slightly lesser points and assists when he's still becoming a more efficient scorer at the same time. And this is where you'll see how lucky Monty Williams is by having the option of deploying an elite guard on the floor at all times. And the addition of Chris Paul to the team made this totally possible, as last season, whenever Devin Booker was on the bench, the Suns were a minus 5.8 points per 100 possessions, but this season, even when Booker sits and as long as Chris Paul is on the floor, the Suns are still a plus 14.1 per 100. And when it's time for Paul to take a rest and Booker takes over, the team is also a plus 13.3 per 100. And basically, the Suns are able to play either one of them with guys like Jae Crowder, Cam Johnson, Cameron Payne, and Dario Saric, while still being able to generate positive net ratings against opposing second units. And it even gets better when Paul and Booker are together on the floor, as they produce a plus 26.4 net rating. But that is provided DeAndre Ayton is on the bench, as they are only a plus 1.2 when sharing the floor with Ayton. But why is this the case actually? Well, as we know, Ayton shares the starting lineup and a huge chunk of his playing time with Paul and Booker. But the thing is, this guy is somewhat an outlier in terms of offensive production. Well, don't get me wrong, Ayton is a solid big man who can kill defenses both in the post and the perimeter. But according to NBA stats, Ayton has the lowest free throw rate in the NBA among all players who take less than 10% of his shots from the 3-point line. So basically, this means that that Ayton shoots threes quite sparingly at less than 1 attempt per game, but is also just taking 2.3 attempts per game from the free throw line, which is relatively few for a big man with that kind of athletic ability and skill set. While obviously, the guy is experiencing at least a 4-point drop in his scoring average from last season, which is kinda expected with the team's influx of scoring from other players, but at least he's still one of the best rebounders in the league as he ranks 4th in rebounds per game in the NBA. And to me, what's been more impressive is how the guy is also a good defender who's able to switch in the perimeter against smaller players. So basically, Ayton is already a huge upside two-way player. I mean, he's already that good. And I think if he finds the right balance between being a stretch big and being an imposing dominant inside scorer, then you can expect the Suns to have another all-star in the next few years or so. So overall, I think the Suns team is presently built as something special. They have one of the best pure point guards in NBA history and one of the most complete offensive players we've seen in recent years. They also have a good balance of veteran players and exciting young pieces to build around. They can beat teams when they're playing fast or even when they're choosing to go slow. And to me, that sounds like a team which is built to succeed in the playoffs when adjustments are needed. While the Suns have never been this good in a long time, but they are finally contenders in the West once again. Thank you for sticking until the end of the video, and as always, feel free to drop your thoughts in the comment section below. And if you're new to the channel, please do subscribe as well. Again, this is Reroll Balls, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.